This is the American farmer of song and story. The sturdy farmer and his family, who by the tens of thousands followed in the footsteps of the pioneers. This is the fabled farmer of America, whose stubborn independence of thought and action bred the love of this nation's soil into the blood and sinew of countless Americans. This is the industrious farmer of America, who depended upon his mind and his muscle to feed and clothe himself and his family. But the farmer of song and story is the vanishing farmer. So to modern farmers, the living heirs of yesterday's farmers, the 37 banks of the farmer-owned farm credit system present credit where credit is due as a tribute to their husbandry of our national heritage.
The modern farmer tends his flocks and harvests his crops in all 50 states of the nation. And you might say he comes in all sizes, big, small, and everywhere in between. Farming for profit is not a function merely of farm size. It depends more on the man and his skills. His skills as a farmer, as a manager of people, of money, and of things. His resourcefulness and ingenuity, his courage, and his devotion to his way of life. The American farmer is very good at his job. The quality and quantity of his products attest that. It used to be that 1 out of every 4 people in the United States had to be a farmer so the people who didn't live on farms could eat. Well, today, the work of one farmer feeds 26 other people, and this represents a revolution in farming. Today, the farmer runs an extremely complex business. He uses machines and credit to operate his farm. He also takes advantage of the latest technical and scientific advances. In short, the American farmer now knows more than he ever did before. For one thing, he may be a graduate of one of the nation's fine agricultural colleges, or his son is. But whether he's a graduate or not, he makes it his business to keep abreast of the latest farming developments constantly flowing from research carried on by universities, government, and industry. The tremendous extent of such research is almost unbelievable. It delves into everything. It may even try to grow more white meat than dark. Yes, that's what I said, more white meat than dark. Progress in agriculture comes fast these days. Almost as much in the past 25 years as in the past 2,500. One of the reasons for this is better farm machinery, itself a product of research. The early farm tractor, now a museum piece, rapidly supplanted the horse as the farmer's best friend. And the revolution in tractors and other farm equipment continues. Each year they get bigger, stronger, and tougher. There was a time when the picking of the millions of bolls of cotton in a field was the backbreaking work of literally hundreds of human hands. But today, machines strip the laden plants, and presto, they're in the cotton trailer. Time was, too, when the rollicking sound of hand-shucked corn bouncing against the bang board was the sure signal of a festive fall feast for the friends and neighbors who gathered to help get in the yellow harvest. On many farms, corn harvesting sounds like this now, and while it may not be as much fun, it gets much more done. Even haying, once one of the most discomforting chores on a farm, gives way to change. Now the hay baler is in almost universal use. Yet the hay baler is already being challenged by a machine that compresses green hay into wafers. Their claim to pep up a cow so she feels like producing more milk. Similar changes are taking place in all farm machinery. If, for example, you harvest just a lot of wheat, a small modern combine will do the job. But if you grow and harvest thousands of tons of wheat, you need a bigger combine, maybe even several. With the right machine, the farmer can spray dozens of fruit trees at a time. He can pick potatoes by the truckload. He can grade apples without even looking at them. And he has nearly automated the chicken. The eggs are on their way to market almost before the poor hen can stop cackling. With a machine, the farmer can so gently milk a cow, she never stops chewing. And the milk travels through glass pipes that can be seen to be clean. Some of it will find its way into stainless steel machines that turn it into powder. Some of it will become cottage cheese, and some the great American dessert. The cream will be churned into good, rich butter, 3 or 4 tons at a time. There aren't many old folks left who remember how it used to be done. Yesterday's farmers made butter in this simple, picturesque way. Today, butter pats are printed on an assembly line basis. Milk is bottled by the millions of quarts, 77 million every day. But the fact is that consumption figures of every food product are equally astronomical. And that's why supplying this endless demand has required farmers to become businessmen. And their business, big business, bigger than automobiles, bigger than railroads, bigger than steel. In fact, the biggest business in America. The industry of agriculture is the biggest seller in the land, too. And as an industry, the biggest buyer in the land. Farmers must not only buy the modern machinery they need and the fuel and oil to keep it going, they must also buy all the supplies and raw materials they turn into commodities for sale. So, agriculture uses money. It uses money to keep going. It uses money to keep modern. It uses money to pay its workmen. So just like any other industry, it uses borrowed money. Vast amounts of borrowed money. Billions every year.
Billions every year. No matter where you look, at the Dakota wheat farmer, the Wyoming rancher, the Texas cotton grower, the California orchard operator, the New England cranberry farmer, they all use borrowed money to operate their farms and ranches. They use long-term loans up to 40 years to finance farmland, buildings, and improvements. They use short-term loans to finance livestock, crops, machinery, and day-to-day operations. This Iowa farmer sends his corn and oats to market on the hoof, or he fattens his pigs and the calves he buys on the grain he grows on his own land. Until he sells the beef and pork, he has no income from his farm. So he operates on borrowed money.
I borrow up to $70,000 a year from PCA.
By PCA, he means his local Production Credit Association, a cooperative organization specializing in short-term credit. The farmer's investment in farm equipment is often quite heavy.
Machinery to run a farm like this costs around $40,000.
Even so expensive as it is, equipment bought with borrowed money is more economical than labor. As is often the case these days, this young man is learning his father's profession, both in an agricultural college and in practice. Some years from now, he'll buy his father's farm. To do it, he plans to borrow from his local Federal Land Bank Association, a farm credit cooperative specializing in long-term credit. With land in this area selling for $400, $500, and even $600 an acre, credit will be essential to get this young farmer started in business. In Massachusetts, an acre of cranberry bog is worth even more money.
Cranberries are an expensive crop to grow. It takes at least $3,000 per acre to establish a cranberry bog. Even after this expense, 4 years will pass before the first harvest. Cranberry men borrow from the Federal Land Bank Association because we can get a long-term loan, then pay it back gradually from the returns in our cranberry production.
In California, farmland is costly too.
Farmland, orchards in this area, whether it's a canning peach orchard, a prune orchard, an almond orchard, or a walnut orchard, have been selling anywhere from $2,000 to $3,000 an acre So it represents a rather heavy investment just to get started in the farming business. Then on top of that, there's a cost of the equipment, which may run as high as $500 per acre. It used to take 25 or 26 people to pick up the walnuts, lift the sacks to the trucks, and carry them to the walnut dryer. Now those 25, 26 people have been replaced, and 3 of us do the entire job without any outside help.
A walnut farm contains about 70 to 100 acres. In contrast, a Wyoming cattle ranch covers thousands of acres.
We Western ranchers have most of our income come in the fall, while a lot of our expenses, in fact most of them, come in the spring and early summer. So a good line of credit is very important to us.
This rancher's pasture goes on for miles. His Jeep is a part-time cow pony. He has about 200 head of cattle scattered over his rangeland. To raise them, he borrows to expand his capital investment. Fencing, 18 miles of it. Water supplies in every pasture. Dams to catch runoff rainwater. Machinery to put up hay for the winter. And irrigation systems to make that hay plentiful. And to have all this, the rancher depends on both long and short-term credit. Unlike the cattleman, the income of the Wisconsin dairy farmer comes in monthly, but he too needs both long as well as short-term credit. He and his wife operate the farm as partners.
We own 190 acres, 140 which is under the plow. We have 75 head of registered Guernseys. We market our milk through the Golden Guernsey Dairy Co-op in Milwaukee. I raise about 60 acres of corn, 30 acres of oats, and the rest is in pasture and hay.
New and more efficient machinery enables his 16-year-old son, his wife, and himself to work the entire farm. But the machinery adds to his capital investment.
Well, through our Farm Management Association, our figures show that I have just about $60,000 invested in my farm operation.
And do you use short-term operating capital?
Yes, the figures also show that I borrow between $4,000 and $5,000 a year through PCA.
Production credit associations and federal land bank associations are located all over the country. They are credit cooperatives operated by the farmers who use their services. The manager is a credit specialist. He and his staff examine every application for a loan. After discussing the farmer's plans in detail, he presents his report to the association's loan committee. The loan committee is made up of the manager and 2 of the farmers who are directors of the association.
Here's Tom Dean's loan applications.
If the committee decides the farmer is a good risk, a progressive farm operator who knows how to use money to make money, they grant him the loan.
Do you think Tom's operation will support this loan?
I think so. Look at his record. He's showing good progress.
True enough, but has he got enough feed?
He's got plenty of that. That's one of the things I checked.
Well, then it's okay with me.
I agree.
Each production credit loan is backed by the man and the crops and the livestock he will sell. Land bank loans, on the other hand, are backed by the man,
his land, and his buildings. The modern farmer does more than just till the soil. He participates actively in the processing and selling of his farm products, just as he participates in his credit cooperatives. To do it, he and his farm neighbors have organized their own businesses, called farmers' cooperatives. This country grain elevator is typical. It's owned by the farmers it serves. Grain shipped from here is further handled on its way to market by another farmer-owned organization, a regional cooperative. The regionals serve the local cooperatives with extensive marketing, shipping, and handling services. Moving grain by the millions of bushels requires a tremendous amount of money, credit. Much of the cotton crop moves through cooperative channels too, for ginning, compressing, warehousing, marketing, and even extracting oil from the seed. Ask a cotton farmer what he thinks of his cooperative's facilities. And like as not, he'll reply,
We think they're the best.
How did you finance your cooperative?
The farmers put up part of the money, and then the rest of the capital was obtained from the Houston Bank for co-ops.
Almost every agricultural product is handled through farmer-owned cooperatives. The list is almost endless. Just as the farmer himself does, cooperative food processing organizations keep abreast of progress, often leading the way.
You have all heard the expression, busy as a cranberry merchant. Well, in the old days, old horse and buggy days, they had to sell the whole crop in only 30 days. Today, we market through our co-op, Ocean Spray, all year long. Our cooperative borrows from the Bank for Cooperatives to store, process, and market our cranberries.
In this building is one of the 13 banks for cooperatives, making up the third part of the farm credit system. In addition to financing cooperatives, the banks act as able and interested business advisors to the farmer directors and managers who run the cooperatives. Of course, farmers buy as well as sell, so they've organized cooperatives where they can buy good quality supplies at good prices. Such farm necessities as building supplies, fencing, feeds, fertilizer, and gasoline and oil. The need for credit is nationwide, so the farm credit system is nationwide. Locally, there are almost 500 production credit associations. From them, farmers borrow more than $3 billion each year of short and intermediate term credit. There are 700 land bank associations. Farmers have $3 billion of long-term credit outstanding from them. Altogether, Farmers and their cooperatives obtain over $5 billion a year through the 12 intermediate credit banks, the 12 land banks, and the 13 banks for cooperatives that make up the Cooperative Farm Credit System. The system is chartered, supervised, and examined by the federal government, but it does not lend government money. Instead, it borrows the money it lends. It borrows the money from investors, private investors. They include state and national banks, insurance companies, many large corporations, pension funds, labor union funds, trust funds, state and city funds, colleges, and even individuals. To get this money, the 37 banks of the system sell bonds and debentures through its fiscal agent located in New York City's financial district. Once every month, he offers for sale through 400 investment dealers from coast to coast enough debentures to supply the intermediate credit banks and production credit associations for the next 30 days. Several times a year, he also sells land bank bonds and bank for cooperatives debentures. The day after an offer is made, subscriptions roll in by phone and wire. It means a busy, busy day, because anywhere from $100 million to $250 million is involved in the transaction. The bonds and debentures are in effect promissory notes backed by the combined skills of the American farmer and the lending experience of the farm credit system. Thus, the money flows from private investors through the New York fiscal agent and the 37 banks, then goes on to the locally managed production credit and federal land bank associations and marketing and purchasing cooperatives blanketing the country. The local credit associations directly finance the American farmer, in whose hands rests the tremendous job of providing 3 square meals a day for almost 200 million Americans. It's a tribute to the American farmer that the job gets done so well, we Americans could give thanks every day of the year.
Amen.
Well, what'll you have this time, son? Light or dark?